Deciding when to sell your dental practice is one of the biggest decisions you will make in your entire career. And buying that practice, that is the biggest decision. I am so thrilled to have with me transitions specialist, Nachos sponsor, Thad Miller with me today. And we are going to talk about all the things you need to do to succeed with success and not stress in making the biggest decision of your dental career, how to buy and sell a dental practice. Thad, thanks for being here with me. Just share with our
Great to be here,
audience
Paul.
what you do in your daily day to help dentists, I'll say, realize their dreams and also not scream in the process. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it just depends. Every day is a little different. Just like we say, every client is a little different, and every transition is different. So, yeah, the most important thing we can do is just listen to our clients and find out exactly what they want. And sometimes they don't know. So we kind of got to start the journey together and work together to find, ideally what they probably need and want at the same time.
I love that. I've been helping your amazing team from DDS Match learn how to talk dentist and what you can say to dentists, because it's always about relating to people. Is just like you customize a treatment plan for your patient, we customize a transition plan for you, and that will resonate with them. And I also try to teach dentists how to talk broker. So just say to your broker, no matter what, I'm working on my EBITDA and biceps at all times, right? So they can resonate with you. And I say this in a joking way, but knowing the language of this world, I'm a dentist. I've helped sell practices. I've bought multiple practices. And one of the reasons we're doing podcasts like this is to deliver responsible information, because dental school does not talk about this. I made errors with a dual representation broker. I made errors with not asking the right questions. And I've just loved talking with you and your team because I learned something new every day. So I want to start off with something you shared with me, which was great. Is you said the more the dentist cares about what happens after the sale, the more cautious you need to be and the more time it will take. So tell me about what that means to you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the reasons I started this business 15 years ago is I didn't feel like there was a great source of professionalism in this business. And, dentistry is intimate. It's a relationship. It involves other people, not just the dentist. I mean, there's staff that are active members of the community, the patients that come there. It's a very sticky business, as we say, that goodwill that sells, that chart that's in that building. 95% of the time, if we do this right, those patients stay.
Yeah.
So, if most dentists really, really care how this plays out. So that's the first thing. And because it doesn't just affect them, it affects, a lot of people.
Yeah.
And what drove me to start this was, I was work for a distributor, and I'd get a call from a dentist and they'd say, I'm just closing shop. I'm gonna, I'm finished, and you can close my account. I'm like, well, what about your staff? What
Yeah.
about, what do you mean? And they're like, well, I'm just done. And I didn't know there were good options. And back then there really weren't. And there, obviously we feel like we're a great option for people. I joke too that, what if I told that dentist, like if you were a sailor and you had this nice sailboat and it wasn't brand new, but it was nice. And when you're done sailing, do you just, unhook
Yeah.
it from the dock and just let it float into the ocean? No, we're going to sell it. So we're transition it. So,
I love what you're sharing here, and I want to dig deeper into it, but I want to share from my own experience, Thad. So we've acquired multiple practices. We've done a chart merger. And what happens is dentists just don't think about their transition plans, and they don't manage the expectations of their patients and team. We bought charts from a very nice dentist that he did $100,000 a year. Our accountant knew him. He said, this group with Paul and his dentist can acquire your charts. He didn't want to come over. He wanted to be done. We got boxes of charts, right? That was a
yeah,
boxes of paper charts. So we sent out letters. The amazing thing was people came back to see us who hadn't seen him in 4 or 5 years because they, just got reminded to see a dentist. And one came in and said, I'm here, but I'm very upset. I can't believe Dr. T abandoned me. And I said, did you see how old he was at the last recall exam? Poor guy just wanted to move to the beach with his wife. But I think you're hitting a good point. The emotional relationships created inside of a dental practice, and I work in many businesses now. I've never seen anything like it because you're working face to face with people, right? And you're
yeah,
seeing them through seasons of their life, good ones, difficult ones. So I love what you're sharing. So just to kind of keep talking about this theme, which I think is so important, especially for sellers, the timing of this, the transition plan, what are some things that you tell your sellers, whether it's just in terms of months, whether it's terms of having to let go, whether it's mentally or clinically? Tell me about some of what this means. The more cautious you need to be and the more time it will take.
Yeah, I mean, I think the more cautious you need to be is speaks to, you need to have a people helping you. I mean, this is what we do for a living. I mean, and at DDS Match, we can totally empathize with the dentist because we own our own business. We invested in this. I started out, I invested, and then people that come on board, they're not employees of mine. They own their own DDS Match franchise, and they are running their business just like a dentist is running their
Yeah.
business. So, we can totally empathize with the dentist in trying to figure out how to run the business, how to sell the business, how to transition the business to bring on more people, bring on less people, cash flow problems. I mean, we can empathize. So I think it's important to have somebody help, and it's not just a broker, but I mean their attorney, their accountant. And the way we work is we work in tandem with attorneys and
I like
accountants
it. That
and
Thad, I want
bankers.
to interject for a second. So one of the things I like to share is that my dream was to play professional basketball, but that dream failed miserably because when you grow to this size and have this speed, you got to get new dreams. I was a good high school basketball
Right.
player, but I've
Right.
asked your brokers, and it's just there's no such thing as reinforcing fundamentals too many times, whether it's with a golf swing or basketball. There's a very famous Final Four, one of the best basketball players ever to live, called the timeout when he didn't have one and lost the game for his team at Michigan. So when we talk about fundamentals of team, just tell our audience, even if it's super fundamental to you, who's on your transition team as a seller? They reach out to you, Thad Miller, as a broker. You're working for them on one side as the seller. Who else is going to be on that team?
Well, as soon as possible, we want to connect with their current advisors, and if their current advisors don't have dental transition experience, we like to introduce them to people that do. I mean, again, there's incredible professionals out there, and every one of our team have these professionals in our marketplace, and we also have national relationships, that we can bring in if we need to. But we feel like part of our process, the trusted transition process, is to connect them to professionals to make sure that we are on the right track. And because there's nothing worse than getting really far down the road with a buyer and then having to stop because that buyer is depending on this working out well too. It's, obviously we represent the seller, but we're guiding the buyer. We're not giving them advice, but we're getting them connected to a good team
And one thing
that'll
I'll
help
share
them.
is I want to just interject your saying so is that the advisors that they're working with, this might just seem simplistic, but they have a longer relationship with them than you do because you're coming in at the sell point and they may have been working with these accountants and attorneys for years. So at least make them aware because I heard from one of your brokers that, one time they're about to sell a practice and it was ready to go. And the accountant said, hold on, or the financial planner, you don't have enough money to retire.
Right.
That's what you're alluding to. So kind of
Absolutely.
bring that to life. Dentist, I'm just telling you that when we go to dental school, all we learn is what's wrong. Your prep's wrong. The way you dress is wrong. So dentists are conditioned to hear when things go wrong. So maybe highlight what that broker man is saying. They said, I was about to sell someone's practice. We thought we had everything together, but I know you're a sports fan. In the red zone, 20-yard line, the financial planner accountant said, hey, you can't do this. I didn't know
Yeah.
you were doing this. You didn't have enough money. Tell us a little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, and then we have those people. I mean, we have relationships on a nationwide basis and a local basis where they will sit down with a client, at no charge and give them it's like the State Farm, the discount double check. You remember
Yeah,
that? You
yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah. Aaron Rodgers. Yeah.
that? Yeah, the Aaron Rodgers thing. So we can do that, and there's no fee to pay for that, just to kind of give them an idea of, okay, this is going to work out. Because I mean, that's the last thing we want is to want well the last thing we would want is to actually get the sale done and then get a call a year later like, hey, I didn't have enough, this isn't going to work,
Yeah.
you need to I need to move out of state or move out of the country or whatever to to do this because of my non-compete, because obviously that's part of a sale, is that's part of what the dentist is agreeing to, is not to practice in that area. So,
That
you
I
know,
want tell us about that a minute, just so if someone's listening as a seller and they're saying, okay, I might want to sell my practice. I live in Philadelphia, PA, like me. I'm going to hire a DDS match broker to help me. Once the sale goes through, and even if this is incredibly fundamental to you, Thad, just explain to my audience what that means where they can't practice there anymore.
yeah,
They
yeah.
sign.
Well, and we'll break it down to the basic too of like when they sell and they see purchase agreements and closing statements, there's a term called goodwill. And goodwill is a majority of the sale. In most cases, it's 80 to 90% of how the sale is broken out. So that term goodwill is basically the seller's relationship with the patients. Because when we sell, technically, we aren't selling the charts. The charts are actually owned by the patients, but we're selling an opportunity to connect with those patients and keep them on. And that goodwill is ideally strong, and it needs to be protected if that is exactly what the
Yeah.
buyer is buying. So they put that non-compete around there, and there's a reason because it doesn't do them any good if they spend 90% of the sale on goodwill and that person's right in their backyard a month later.
And also, just to continue, this is a great conversation, and you're delivering a lot of value. Why is the non-compete for a seller, so much stronger and usually wider than just when they sign their associate contract out of dental school? So maybe they're thinking, oh, when I signed an associate contract out of dental school, they just said 2 miles for a year, and that's no big deal. But then on the seller side, and I believe I know the answer, but I can learn from you. Why is it more serious or
Because
strong?
it's a majority of the sale. I mean, again, that the equipment in the practice, no matter if they've stayed up to date or whatever, it has value. But you know, when you're buying a practice that is currently in process, that's been in operation for 30 to 40 years, that's in most cases a better investment than starting from scratch because you have cash flow day one. And it's our job to show that cash flow, to be transparent in everything that we do. And that's why we have our process that we run, the trusted transition process. We use clinical opportunity blueprint. We provide more to the buyer than any other transition company in the country. And the goal is that they understand what they're buying, but it ultimately, that goodwill is the biggest portion of it. And those relationships can travel with a dentist if they're close by, but it needs to be further out so it's more of a hindrance because that's what the buyer's buying, and that's only fair. I mean, really, the buyer's taking most of the risk in these sales. It's not the seller, um, and we there's got to be protection for the buyer.
I love what you're sharing there. I'll share, and these are my people, the general dentist dad. So I can talk about my own people. That's allowed. I can talk about my own people, general dentist, Eagles fans. Those are my people. So in 2018, I gave a little seminar on how to sell your dental practice, and a pediatric dentist showed up. 2018. So that was a pretty before 2020. And she said, Paul, I'm a pediatric dentist. I just want to find out about this process because I think I want to go through it in the next few years. And I go, wow, you're like coming plenty early. And then she listed her practice with me during the pandemic, and we were able to get her great value during the pandemic because she was prepared. She had all the documents, she knew what she was doing. So, talk to our audience as sellers as why starting too late, not paying attention early enough can result in, I would say, a waste of time, getting less money. Tell us about some of these times where sellers don't come to people like you early enough and are desperate, and how that can impact whether the time they can leave their practice or the money that they're going to get for it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we say all the time is we want a dentist to transition on their own terms.
Yeah, that's great.
And if they're prepared, they can do that. And remember, our job is to work for the seller in tandem to find them exactly what they
Yeah.
want and need. It's not like when you sell a house, you hire a realtor, they throw a number on it, they bring in their buyers, the seller's got to scurry out of the house to do a showing, and then they get a call and go, "Hey, I have a buyer, here's your number. Is it fair?" They don't even see the buyer at closing. So, what we do is incredibly intimate, and our job is to find multiple opportunities for the seller. If it's private
Yeah.
practice dentist, first time buyer, if it's a dentist who wants their second or third practice, or if it's a DSO, we do it all. We are not connected to any company to to sell a certain way or not. I mean, we all run the same process and we are impartial to who the buyer is. We work for the seller. And like I said, every transition is different. It's our job to listen to the seller and find out what they want and try to achieve that and give them options.
I love that. Let's stick with this for a minute, because one of the things I've explained to dentists is that when you sell a house after it's sold, you don't have to live with the new people in the house. But when you sell a practice, more often than not, you are living with the new owner for a period of time. And now just walk us through another fundamental thing. And I'll use me, Thad. Dr. Nachos House of Dentistry in Guac. I do $1.5 million a year. I have solid profit. I've run a good practice. And I'm thinking, do I want to sell to a DSO or a private practice buyer? Talk to me about after I sell. A transition like that to a private practice buyer, how often is that seller staying on post-sale? If they're doing 1.5 million, they sell to their first buyer. What's, in general, in your experience, what time frame they usually staying on for?
I mean, a month to 6 months,
Yeah.
maybe, you know?
So what that means is I only have to, no matter what, and I want to be a good guy. 6 months, I get to go do whatever I want, right? I
Yeah.
say, hey, now say I want to sell to a DSO and I sell this practice to a DSO. How often am I living in my practice house
Yeah.
with that
3 to 5
DSO?
years. Yeah. 3 to 5 years. And it's going to be different than when they owned it. I joke that, a lot of our clients that are selling, they haven't worked for anybody since they had a paper route. And
Yeah.
there aren't even paper routes anymore. I mean, our clients are in their, 50s and 60s and 70s. Um, and, working for someone is different than owning your own business, obviously. And so they have to take that into account. And, I sold two practices in the last year at the same revenue, and one was to a private buyer. The dentist didn't work a single day in the practice, and that was the choice of both the buyer and the seller. And then I sold a very similar size practice to a DSO, and they're going to be working there maybe 5 to 10 years.
Tell us
So
about
it
those
just depends.
deals. This
Mhm.
is such a great, tell us about the mindset of those two different sellers. I love this. I mean,
Yeah,
sounds like both of them got an outcome that they are satisfied with,
yeah.
but
Hmm.
they had drastically different transition plans with the same revenue. So talk to me about those mindsets of those sellers. If you call them
Yeah,
DSO and
yeah.
doctor private practice,
So
what's the mindset difference?
yeah, so Dr. A, they both did their revenue collections were $2 million. And Dr. A called me about 2 years after the COVID shutdown and is like, "Hey, I've I didn't know I could retire until I was forced to not work."
That's great.
And then he goes, "I realized that I can do this. I can retire." And I think it's critical for anybody considering selling their business to have a path forward of things other than dentistry. And that really proved to him that he enjoyed his family more. He enjoyed being with his dog more. He had travel plans, and that's what pushed him out. And he was probably 55, but he'd done a nice job saving. His spouse made good money, and he was ready. And we had a buyer that had great experience. And I'll tell you too, Paul, I think, I mean, I've been in dentistry for 27 years. Um, Prior to this, I worked for a distributor for 12 years and started this 15 years ago. Um, I think the dentists of today are better clinically than ever. And I might have some people frustrated with me with that, but I think part of it is just exposure. I think the dentists that are coming out, they're getting put into situations where they're having to do all types of dentistry using all types of technology, and they're getting their feet, they're getting thrown in the fire right out of the gate.
And
Where
I'll say
maybe
this, I'll share with you the why behind that. And because we were at your crooked stick, it's because the golfers of today are better than the ones in the past due to the technology and training that they have. And it's
right,
not to say that the golfers of the past were not good at golf. I think you're right on target. The technology and the tools that one of the things I say that, and you can use this if you feel it's valuable to you ever. What dentists can do for patients has never been better. What we can do for people in replacing their teeth and creating a painless, streamlined experience has never been better.
I
The
agree.
life of dentist is under attack. It's under challenges, insurances, debt, but
Sure.
it's wild that like what we do inside of that operatory is like the 350-yard drives from the Dustin Johnsons out there.
Yeah.
Outside the operatory, and maybe this is pretty on brand with what you see with the two tours going on right now, but they are still making a lot of money.
They
What
do.
dentists say. So I think you're right. So you say clinically, dentists are able to step in, and this dentist was able to take over a $2 million practice.
Yes. So, he had skills. He had worked 8 or 9 years. I mean, most of our buyers they're not right out of dental school. They're 4 to 9 years experience is kind of our wheelhouse of buyers. And there's some that are 20 years experience that are buying practices. So, but, he was ready. He was working in a group. He was the only dentist at that facility, and he did $2 million at that facility. So he could do it, and he's doing 2.6 now on his own.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, and he's using technology, but again, the exposure to the amount of dentistry and that they're forced to do, the younger dentists, I think they're better than ever. Now, and then the other dentist I was talking about, she called me and she wanted to work 10 more years. She was a similar age to the seller. I think she's 53. And she's like, I can't do anymore. And I don't even have the time to bring in an associate. I could easily have an associate because she was in a great area, growing area. Anybody would love to work for her. Had a great, beautiful practice. She's like, I don't even have the time. I don't have the time to mentor somebody. I
Yeah.
don't have the time to watch somebody. I need help. So, we took it to market and we found a great DSO buyer, and she can take some of that off her shoulders, and they can bring in an associate and they can grow, they can double it, I'm sure, on where she is, and she'll work there 5 to 10 more years. So again, it was
So
listening
both,
and
I
with
love this.
yeah,
We're talking
go ahead.
about both can be successful.
Yes,
Both can be
yeah,
successful. And also,
yeah,
I'm a practice owner, so I feel I'm qualified to share this. If I had to sell my practice soon, in one aspect, picking a private practice buyer creates a certain amount of stress because I'm leaving in 6 months. If you choose a DSO, I say, hey, me and my team have 3 years here together. The risk of the DSO, this is just as a dentist, is when I'm finished my 3 years, I probably have very little input on who's replacing me, right? I just probably do. It doesn't
yeah,
mean I have none.
yeah.
And when you're a private practice dentist, you have huge input if you're picking the private practice. So both of them come with ups and downs, pros and
Right.
cons. And I think whoever's listening, whether it's the team, whether it's a dental student, whether it's a seller, this is the world that we live in. There's two roads
And
for,
the good news is you've got options. And
yeah,
that's where I'm saying you need somebody like us to help put it all out in front of you. And both of these conversations started with you need to talk to your financial advisor. And if you don't have one, I
yeah,
can give you one. The first one had a great financial advisor, and he kept telling him, You're good. You can do this. You got plenty of money. You can do this. The other one, she didn't have somebody. So I introduced her to somebody that we work with, and he went through everything. It's like, okay, if this plays out, this is what you can expect. And before we even listed it, I mean, I made sure because if she's not ready, we're not going to start.
and that's why I want to, as we kind of wrap up in our last 5 minutes, I want to talk about how you guys are different, your experience. But I want to lead with this. As someone who's bought practices that and been a broker, it's been shocking to me how wild the world is. I'll use an example. Someone tried to sell me a practice where the dentist didn't even want to sell it. They were tricking me. They said, hey, Paul, there's a practice where you want to be. And I'm sure what they were going to do was try to tell that dentist, oh, I have an interested buyer. And the experience was actually very horrible for me. I mean, as a buyer.
Mhm.
Um, I've also had people, brokers, not even give me their last name. That's a true story. I don't know if you're in New Jersey, everyone knows exactly who this broker is. He would only tell you his first name, come up in a Grand Marquis and talk to you about practice at Starbucks. So the lack of standards inside of the broker world, as a dentist ad, I didn't know about any of this. It's just wild to me, right? We got to
Yeah.
go to dental school and get
Yeah.
licenses. Talk to me a little bit about how you see this and then how the DDS match team is different and how your experience really can protect your clients in this wild and wacky transitions world.
Yeah. And that, again, that's one of the reasons I started because I saw it all from somebody who was in the industry for 12 years before I started this company 15 years ago. But our 5 pillars are process. You'll hear that a lot from our group when you're interviewing them. The trusted transition process is something I created, and it's a step by step process that dentists do that. When you do a crown prep, Paul, you do it probably
Yeah.
it's very similar every time. Etch, you go through the steps. That's what we do. Secondly, technology. Our technology is second to none. It allows buyers to create a profile and search for opportunities all across the country. And we have algorithms built in that make them aware when there's new opportunities of areas they chose, and it's free. It's free for buyers. And we actually just yesterday we brought all our web services in house. So we used to use a third party company to do our website. Now we have an in house full time employee that only does our website and other things. So it's great. It's all in house. We represent the third thing would be represent sell side only. We don't do dual representation. We don't believe in it. You can't do it in law. You can't do it in real estate. You can't do it. I mean, I
Of
don't
all
know
the things in
how.
dentistry, that, and I purchased super racks from a dual rep broker, and I have less money because of it. It's my responsibility. I don't fault anyone but myself. But it was back in 2011. It's wild that it exists. And Rob Montgomery, who I know you know, in my
Rob's
podcast
great.
part says
Yeah,
it's like
Rob's
someone
great.
saying, I'm a Cowboys fan and my other favorite team is the Eagles. And if you're in Philadelphia, you'd say that person does not sound. So you're sell side only. And one thing I want to bring out, I know you're getting into it, but just talk to it for a minute about the appraisal or the pricing, because every dentist wants to say, what's my practice worth? How much can I
Yeah,
sell it for? Some people say nothing's 100% that, but I disagree. It's 100%. Every buyer wants to pay less and every seller thinks it's worth more. So
agree,
you
agree. And
guys,
and that was the fourth pillar. And going before I get to that we represent the sell side only, but we're here to guide buyers.
yes,
Okay. We don't represent buyers, but we want to guide them to good advisors, nationwide or local, whatever they have. We have 50 people on our team in 47 states, and I have 7 people in the general office that work with me to work in tandem with our team across the country and nationwide. So, but the fourth pillar is that third party business valuations. When a when a business owner owns an accounting firm or they own a restaurant or a tool and die shop and they go to sell their business, they don't just have somebody come in and throw a number on a one
right,
or two piece of paper and go, let's try and go get this. That's just not what they do. They actually get business valuations, and we work with Blue and Company, and they have certified valuation analysts. It's CVA. It's not unlike when you got a CPA and they go get more training to be a CVA, not like a dentist who wants to be a periodontist. They go get more training to be a periodontist. But they do all our third party valuations across the country. It's very transparent. It's something that is used in the process of the sale, and the buyers can pick it apart. The buyer's advisors can pick it apart. They can pick up the phone and call the person who did the valuation, but it's third party. We didn't name a price with it. It's something that Blue and Company comes up with, and it helps guide us along our process. And, it's just a critical piece to set the tone. One other thing that we have that's is new, we came up with this in the last year. It's called the Clinical Opportunity Blueprint, and it's a collaboration with Dental Intelligence
awesome.
that shows where the clinical opportunity is in the practice. So you've got the business valuation that shows the financial opportunity and the financial wherewithal of the business and a cash flow projection, everything for the buyer. But we also have this third party clinical opportunity blueprint because obviously anybody, any broker, any selling dentist can say, "Oh, there's a ton of
Yes.
opportunity here." I haven't done a root canal in 10 years, or I haven't pulled a tooth unless it's wiggling at me. But we actually put dollars on that
Which
through
I want
dental
to just interject
intelligence.
him is so valuable from what you said before, because as somebody who helps people find jobs every day and also does that, there are those dentists in that 4 to 9 year category that come with a special skill set, like placing implants or doing clear aligners or doing endo. And while, that might not necessarily, if you're a seller, make your practice worth double, it for sure makes it more attractive to buy. Because if I
Agree,
was,
agree, and they need to know. I mean,
yeah,
we don't have a practice that's doing great and the dentist is doing everything and the buyer can only do a few things. I mean, they're going to
yes.
get in there and drown.
Can
So
you replicate the services of the
yeah,
existing?
exactly,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, and our fifth pillar is like I mentioned, is that collaboration with local national advisors. It's very important to us, and there's a reason our process is called the trusted transition process. Is because we want to build trust. And plenty of practices that I've sold to people, I've sold them again. Dentists, just because you throw your flag in the ground and you're in, you know, Indianapolis, Indiana, and you're doing it a certain way, doesn't mean you have to do that for 30 years. If you're like, you know what, I want to work in a group somewhere, I'm going to sell it and go join a group, or vice versa. I'm in a group and I want my own thing somewhere else. We help dentists at all stages of their process. And just like I haven't had very many jobs. I've had three, four. Just because you're a dentist in one place doesn't mean you have to be a dentist in that place for the rest of your life.
Yeah, actually, I think what you said there is so key, and we're seeing more and more and more of that. I mean, I literally just did a seminar on implants last week, and a dentist sold to a DSO in the same state because he said never was going to be able to move from this part of this state. And I had a partner. I did my 2 or 3 years, and then he moved well outside of his restrictive covenant. And at 54 years old, bought a practice, and he was kind of excited about it, right? Because he said,
Yeah,
I just think what you're sharing, and what I strive to do is share the reality of dentistry. There's amazing opportunities when you have the right people on your side.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've got a situation right now. I just listed a practice that I sold to a dentist. He is now having me sell it because he has like five kids and doesn't want to be in Indiana anymore. Our winters here aren't that great.
Yeah.
He wants to move to the Southeast, so I'm connecting him to my professionals in the Southeast to help him find a practice to buy down there while I'm attempting to sell his practice up here. So, he's just like, I'm too young to just go through these winters, and
Yeah.
we're IU basketball fans and we're kind of down. So, things are extra,
I get it. I was at
somber.
Villanova, same with Villanova. Well, Thad, you've shared so much. In our last closing time, I'm so appreciative of this relationship, you guys sponsoring and helping our community. You are someone who represents Indiana and Kentucky, but you are the person who put this whole puzzle together. I love your logo. So just,
Thanks.
tell us if someone's listening and they happened on the Thad Miller podcast, you were the person that put together this nationwide thing. Just tell us about that for about 60 seconds as we wrap up. How someone's listening to Thad Miller saying, oh man, I'm not in Indiana or Kentucky. You work daily with these franchisees. Just kind of reinforce that to everybody here.
Yeah, I mean, we're here to help. And, you know, the opportunity is that I present to people, it comes with a tremendous amount of thought in who that person is because they're representing our brand. And I am so proud of our group of 50 professionals. Our average experience in the dental industry is 23 years. So
Awesome.
we know what we're doing, and we've fired people even before we did this. So we can empathize with the dentist because we're not an employee of a corporation. We are independent owners of businesses, just like the dentist. And it's in our best interest to have these transitions go smoothly because those are our future clients also.
Well, I love it that we're here striving to help dentists together. People can text by to 215-543-6454. We will connect you with amazing opportunities if you're looking to buy a practice, and you can text sell to 215-543-6454 to connect to sell your dental practice. We're here to treatment plan transitions with success. This has been Dr. Nacho and Thad Miller. Thanks so much for sharing with me, Thad.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.